Satsankalpa.
Whatever Bhagavad Gita said right now is same thing that even the medicine is telling. The brain research is telling. I just wanted to conclude this section by saying what people call as a human performance to be increased, what people are saying in psychology in the West, what people are discovering in physiology and neurology and anatomy and in medicine is connected with this. Think about this is like an iceberg. What you see is above the line. Action we see, results we see. That's all what we call conscious mind can observe. But underneath the conscious mind, behind the action, there is a thought. Behind the thought, there is a feeling. Behind the feeling, there is a stimulus, there is an emotion. Behind the emotion, there is body sensation, physiology that is there. By the way, if you notice what Bhagavad Gita has said, they say it, this is the Upanishadsu. In the colophon, we say Upanishadsu, Brahma Vidyayam. Why do we say all that at the end of each chapter? We say that because it is the essence of all Upanishads. In the Upanishads, like Taittiriya Upanishad, we talk about Panchakoshas, Panchakosha Prakaran, Annamaya Kosham, Pranamaya Kosham, Manomaya Kosham, Vijnanamaya Kosham, Anandamaya Kosham, then we have Atma. So you can connect those right here. I will not go into too much of this, but to say, when you say alignment of what is happening in your body, what's happening through your mouth, what's happening in your heart, thoughts and feelings, and then what happens through your body, actions, when you can align this Trikarana Suddhi, that the results will become much, much more meaningful. Your performance increases significantly more effectively. Can you go to the next slide, please? Now, so far, I hope I have connected to the first objective, which is about how do I find clarity of action? How do I know what is my purpose? How do I know how to act in the world as, per Gita? That's what we have talked about. Now we are going to touch upon how do we coach people? How do we lead? How do we become a leader using the Gita? In this context, there are some things which we talk about as a wise leader. When I wrote a book about 11 years ago, along with a friend of mine called Navi Raju, we talked about smart versus wise. What I found now, especially looking at the elections in India, elections in United States, elections everywhere, what we said was a little bit too ahead of time. So wisdom is needed a lot more now in the age of generative artificial intelligence, in the age where whatever you mindlessly, routinely, what you can do with Thomasic attitude can be done by AI. It requires consciousness and intelligence that is beyond the intellect of the large language models. You need to become wise and you need to become conscious leader. And for that to take place, what are the characteristics Bhagavad Gita talks about? One is detachment from result. Second, we talked about so far, focus on the greater good. Focus on the larger purpose. Focus on others, right? And so far we talked about balancing emotion with reason. Align all of them. Kaya, Vacha, Manasa, align them. That's what we talked about. How did Krishna teach that to Arjuna? He did it through dialogue. When did he do this dialogue? When Arjuna was ready to do the purpose for which he came into the world as a Pandava, to win the Kurukshetra war. Why is that important? Because that is the dharmic war of a huge, great magnitude, a large war. There were only like 5 people lived from one and 3 people lived in the other side. So you are talking about an incredible war that took place, maybe as big as the Third World War, if you want to call. Before he was ready to actually take on the role and do the war, be the warrior, at that time, Krishna had this dialogue. He didn't have it in the Agnatavasa. He didn't have it in the Vanavasa. He allowed Arjuna to go get all the weapons, all the astras from various places. And interestingly, if you notice, just before this war, in the last day of Agnatavasa, actually Arjuna wins over the entire Kuru, the army. He did it all by himself. But when it came to the role where he was supposed to take up this role, when he looked at all these people, that is when he had the Hrudaya Daurbalyam, when he really needed the coaching, because when he came to recognize this is the largest task, this is the purpose for which he is on the planet as Pandava, his mental weakness began to show. There were cracks in his mental framework. That happens to each and every one of us. When we are doing something very important, when we understand the significance of our action, generally the hands become wet, the mind becomes fearful, and the sweat starts pouring out of our head. Is that true or not? So that is because we think we are doing it. We think it is our action. We are prepared. When we have that type of stuff, Krishna needed to coach him. What is he coaching him on? About who he is, about the role that he needs to play. He said, just let go. Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachi. I have already done all this, and you just need to do your duty. So the Bhagavad Gita is essentially a very powerful psychology text, a coaching manual. It is helping Arjuna to discover his inner potential. Another way of saying is, he is telling Arjuna, you are not just a human being, you are not just a Pandava, you are not just a king who is fighting for Dharma. Actually, you are just a person who is my friend. I am teaching you because you are priyam, you are dear to me. And you are not doing anything. Everything is already done. You need to do your duty and your role, and I will do my duty and my role. So don't take anything personally. Na mama, keep on saying, and then work with it. That is the wise attitude. That is what is detachment. That is what is doing your duty for the larger good, or with a clarity of purpose, and balancing that what you are doing it as if you are watching on the television. Next slide, please. So in being a coach, he shows, so Arjuna shows a lot of confusion and despair. We said a little while ago, emotions become a big issue. That is what happens. There are 3 things which we talked about so far. I'm trying to show how those 3 things are essential for coaching and developing leaders. One is wisdom, not knowledge, not data. Whether it's a corrupt data, whether it's a good data, what data are you feeding your large language model? That's all only important for data, information, knowledge purpose. Because when you use a AI model, You need to know what you are doing. You talk about hallucination for large language model. I should tell you, we hallucinate probably 10 times a day. So human beings also hallucinate, and that is what we teach our AI models also. So there is nothing special about, oh, we need to be careful about large language models. Chat GPT hallucinates, it may not be right. You know what? Are you right all the time? The facts that you remember, are they truly facts, or are they what you remember? Do you remember the, Smriti Brahmsad Buddhinasa? What do you think is Smriti Brahmsa? What does it mean, Buddhinasa? That means the data you had, the facts you had, interpretation you made, actions you take, what you remember, most of the times is not truth. If you are questioning, check with your spouse. Ask your spouse, or ask your kids, or ask your parents whether you act out of facts. We don't. We are not rational beings most of the time. That is what Bhagavad Gita says. So gain a perspective and encourage other people. Be an agent of positive change. How does he do that? These are the 3 points which we need to give according to Bhagavad Gita. How do we coach? What does Krishna take? He brings a lot of empathy. Empathy is walking a mile in somebody else's shoes. It is not same as sympathy. Sympathy is, oh, I'm sorry, poor you. Here is 10 rupees. Here is $2. Go eat your meal. No, that is sympathy. That's actually looking down on a person. Krishna did not look down on Arjuna. He showed empathy. He said, Maitra Karuna Evacha. In 6th chapter, he talks about Maitri and Karuna. He brings. By the way, again, this is not just same as in Upanishads. This is same as in Yoga Sutras. In Patanjali Yoga Sutras, we talk about Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha as 4 very, very important things. Even in Buddhism, they talk about as Brahmaviharas. So Bhagavad Gita, as we said, is not just some text. It is the summary of all texts, not just from Hinduism, but from all dharmic religions. Okay, he brought empathy, he brought patience, he brought insight. These are 3 things which you want to use if you want to coach somebody. What is the outcome the coachee should get? They should gain wisdom, not knowledge, perspective about who they are, not what they should do, encouragement, no matter what the condition is, positive change. When you do that, of course, in this later parts, I talk about what is detachment, which I think we talked about all this time. I will not elaborate on it. You need to detach from you doing the action. I am doing it. I should get the result. I should get name and fame. Like in, these days, they say, yes, yes, yes. In the Olympics, I did it. I am the greatest. Let go of that. That is the first part. Second, making decisions. When you are making decisions, several times you need to pay attention to, based on what should I make decisions. Bhagavad Gita says, make decisions based on dharma, based on what is appropriate, based on the role that you are playing, what is the right dharma. Because what I do as a coach for my paid clients, if I try to do it at my home, it does not work. Please don't try to coach your family unless they ask for it. Because the relationship that you have with your family is very different. Ask a question. Do you need my coaching? I can tell you, I might charge a lot of money as a coach, but most of the time I find my wife and kids very rarely need my coaching. As a matter of fact, they'll tell you, Please stop being a coach. Please do it to people who pay you and make you a coach or as a professor. In the house, I want you as a husband or as a father. And when I say something, you don't put on the consultant hats and say, Vinodha, do this. This is better. No, shut up and listen. Say, oh, poor Vinodha, I'm sorry you had a tough day. What do you want me to do? Several times what I need to do is just to give a hug, give an empathetic ear, and empathize with her, be with her, and do some small things which I can help to on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure you learned this without my telling, but this is a daily issue for many of us, because when we have to make difficult choices in the workplace, we do it very nicely. But when it comes to ourselves, the self-awareness and the role of who I need to be where. It doesn't matter whether you are a CEO of a large company. When you come to your home, in front of your parents, in front of your kids, if you try to show your CEO stuff, you'll be kicked out very nicely. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Right. Third one, which we said, is balancing emotion and reason. You have to bring a balance to that, because don't depend upon your thought as if everything is rational, logical, and scientific. It is not. The world is not scientific, but the science is one of the best tools that we have to understand when we make the problem to be bounded within the conditions. Okay. So when you can balance and empathetic when you are dealing with people, but be clear. Your thoughts have to be intelligent, not just intellectual. Big difference between intellect and intelligence. AI has intellect, does not have any iota of intelligence. That's why you can ask it to write something and you ask it to critique. It has a detachment. It will critique as if it has nothing to do with what it has done. And you can keep on working with it with intelligence to make AI as your partner. Don't be concerned about AI getting you out of your job, but it can get you into using more of your intelligence, more of your wisdom. With AI as a partner, you can do extraordinary things. I am able to write so many articles. If you see on LinkedIn, I put in like 50 or 60 articles in the past 1 year, because AI can help me as what you call a researcher. AI can help me to clean up my writing, edit my writing. It can actually get me variety of things. So that means technology is not your enemy. If you know how to use technology, use it as a partner. Next slide, please. So now I'll just bring it towards some closure, and I'll just touch upon some things which I have written in the book so that I don't have to talk a lot more about it. You might be able to grasp that. So how do you become a wise leader? How do you become an excellent coach? 18th chapter gives you wonderful summary. It talks about taking the 3 gunas, which he explains from 15th chapter onwards, and brings it and gives you a fantastic framework in 18th chapter. I think something like 20 to 36 or 22 to 38 or somewhere that slokas. He gives you a fantastic, Gita gives you a project management framework. It talks about Gnanam, Karma, Karta, Buddhi, Dhruti, Sukham. These 6 things, you break it up into Sattvika Gnanam, Rajasika Gnanam, Tamasika Gnanam, 6x3 matrix. Based on that, you can create wonderful things. That's what I took this from. Develop a holistic perspective, a Purnam, like we talk about Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnamevavasishyate. This is one of the invocations which we do in Upanishads. Some of the Upanishads, like huge Upanishads like Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we use this as the sloka to begin with. What does it mean? The Bhagavad Gita talks about wholeness, talks about systems way of thinking. We are a system of systems. By the way, in the Western context, they call it holonic approach. Holon, Holon, is a word Arthur Koestler used, and Ken Wilber extensively used that, saying, I am whole and I am part of a larger whole. As a human being, I'm whole and complete, but I'm part of my family, which is a larger whole. My family is whole, but it is part of even larger community. My community is a whole, but it's part of a larger city, state, country, humanity. So that means each one of us is Purnam, but we are also part of larger Purnam. That is the meaning of Purna, that whole invocation, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avasishyate. Just like a woman gives birth to a baby, doesn't take away woman's life. Woman is whole, the baby is whole, and they become completely independent and they can live, but if they can retain the relationship between the two and recognize how their karmas are intertwined, their genes are intertwined, then the love and affection and something they develop, then that will give you the right dharma for people. So here it says, first have a samyak jnanam, holistic perspective, when you are coaching, when you are being a leader yourself. Second, pick right action. What is authentic is important. Everybody talks about, even in the Western management in leadership, authentic leadership is talked about a lot. But Bhagavad Gita says authentic is not always right thing. You have to be authentic. Along with that, you have to be appropriate. If you are not appropriate, even if you are authentic, it doesn't work. Not only in Bhagavad Gita. By the way, Bhagavad Gita is, we call it a Dharma Shastra. What is the Dharma Shastra which we normally refer to? Manu Dharma Shastras. What does Manu Dharma Shastra say? Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. Tell the truth. But before you tell the truth, make sure that truth is dear to other people. Don't just blurt out your truth if it is a harsh truth in front of everybody when it is not the right time to tell, because that fellow will not like you. Not only that, your truth will not be heard. Your opinion is not valued. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. Na bruyat satyam apriyam. Look at the right context. Be appropriate when you share the right truth. Be authentic when it is appropriate context. And also on what basis? Based on the larger purpose to contribute. That is Sattvika Karma. Then be clear about who are you. Nimittamatram bhavasavya sachi. That is Sattvika Karta. How do you make decisions? Make decisions with vivekam. Yukta yukta vichakshana. Yukta, this is right. This is ayukta. Have that vichakshana, that discrimination, discernment. When you make that, not based on emotion, not based on logic, use it with intuition. By the way, intuition is very different from instinct. Instinct is a tamasic way of looking at what comes from the body and what comes from the past. Intuition is aligning the past, present, and future It gives you that lit up view. That means it is the same instinct. When it is coming from Rajasic, it becomes vision. When it comes from Sattvic, it becomes intuition. That is where the prajna comes into picture. Medha, prajna, dharana we talk about. That is what we ask, whether it is Dakshinamurti, whether it is Krishna. That is what helps you to develop your buddhi. And then fortitude, the dhruti. You need to know when to hold on, when to let go. When you can learn just this, whatever is happening in your life, Bhagavad Gita says, you need to know when to stay with that problem for a little longer, when to let go. Don't let go because your boss said, you know what, we are not doing that project anymore. Fine. But think about it and say, all the hard work I did in this project, can I reframe it in another work? Whatever I did in this resume, preparing this resume, can I apply for this job by making changes? Most people, they send the same resume for every job. No, you need to customize everything. You need to know what to keep in your resume, what to let go. So if you are applying for a small job, you have a PhD and 20 years experience, when you put that in your resume, hey, having more of it doesn't hurt, right? That is how we think. It doesn't work that way. You need to hold back. For a small job, if you are applying, if you are coming with so much experience, they'll say, oh, he's overqualified. If we hire him at this salary in this job, he will not stay or she will not stay. So we will not give you the job. So fortitude, right dhruti for right opportunity, when you know that, then it becomes easier. Finally, I have translated sukham as motivation. By the way, same thing. Gnanam, I translated it as perspective, because data, information, knowledge is not same as gnanam. Most people translate gnanam as knowledge. It is not knowledge, but it is the perspective that you gain by knowing that knowledge is what is gnanam. So gnanam, vignanam, prajna, when you look in Bhagavad Gita and in our spiritual texts, don't translate directly into English saying, oh, I have this knowledge. That's the reason why I read Bhagavad Gita for so many times. I've given so many talks. Have I become wiser? That, of course, my family has to tell. But my actions have to tell. That means in this particular action, am I bringing everything? Am I motivated to tell the truth, do what is best for you? Am I acting out of noble purpose? That is what will determine.